Welcome. I am Doug Sandler, host, co-host of Women, Men, and Relationships. Also co-hosted by JJ Flizanes. Welcome, JJ, to the podcast.
Well, that was an interesting trial.
I wasn't... Oh, you know, Strickland does all of the introductions on the Nice Guys on Business podcast, so I very rarely am the first word. I'm very rarely not the last word, though. So I have a hard time if I don't have the last word, but I don't want to do the introduction.
Okay.
Okay, baby.
Okay, baby. Well, we just discussed that, so.
You are entering a time. This is the Twilight Zone.
Perfect setup. So last week we were telling you that we were going to talk. Good job, babe. Perfect setup for the conversation that we started on the show last week that was sparked by Doug meeting my parents. So do you want me to set it up or do you want to set it up?
Hi, Gus. Hi, Val. Pleasure to meet you. I'm Doug. That's right. I live with your daughter.
All right. That wasn't the setup I was looking for.
No. It was the whole thing was just great. I can't remember where did I first meet them? At the hotel. Oh, I couldn't eat. Oh gosh, the setup was so funny because they got to. So let me set the stage. So in answer to your question, yes, I will take care of this.
Okay, honey.
So they were supposed to get there a little bit earlier, a few hours earlier, to the hotel where we all four were going to be staying. In Baltimore. On a journey back to Baltimore, JJ and I said to her parents, we'd love to meet you in Baltimore. Why don't you come? So they ended up meeting us in Baltimore. They were supposed to be there somewhere around lunchtime, but somehow the message didn't get through to them that lunchtime was the time they were supposed to be there. So they got there around the same time that you had an appointment. So JJ was in the room on Zoom having her appointment, and I was in the lobby waiting for her parents to arrive. Now, that's a little unusual situation in that, you're not really supposed to meet your girlfriend's parents without your girlfriend with you, but okay, figuring I got this. I've met plenty of parents in my day. They're going to love me. And, of course, they do love me. However, I did meet them on my own for the first time. So they walked in the door. I said hello. We chatted for a few minutes, and then I helped them carry the bags up to the room. And then I'm like, do I hang out in their room with them? Should I go downstairs and wait? So I basically said, here's what we'll do. I'll take the bags up to the room, make sure that you guys are all situated, all set, and everything's comfortable. We talked for a few minutes, and then I said, why don't you guys get freshened up for dinner? We're going into dinner in about an hour. I will wait downstairs in the lobby for you and JJ. Would that be okay? Giving them the opportunity to say, nah, stay in the room. Or, sure, we'll meet you downstairs. So I didn't care. I had no agenda either way. So basically they said, great, we'll see you down in the lobby in about 45 minutes. So I went downstairs in the lobby. Pressure now completely off me. I didn't have to maintain 45 minutes of conversation with them. Not that I didn't enjoy talking to your parents, but that's an unusual situation to be in where you just have to initiate conversation. So I went downstairs to the lobby and waited for them, where you met us a few moments later, about 45 minutes later.
Well, to be fair, you hadn't met them on Skype months before. I think it was in June. And so it's not, it wasn't the first time that everybody met, just the first time in person. And Mr. Doug Sandler, you talk to everybody. So this is not the situation where
I didn't want to make small talk, though. I wanted it to be meaningful conversation. I'm really good at small talk, but when it comes to the meaningful shit, I have a tough time sometimes. I didn't know where to go. Do I start talking about your ex? Do I get into any of that relationship stuff? So no. I did maintain a few moments of good conversation, and then I went downstairs. I dismissed myself.
Okay. Well, okay. This is a good setup. Good setup, I guess. I wanted just the picture of my parents coming to visit. We're staying in the hotel. I haven't seen my parents for a year.
Right. So you haven't seen them since you...
Well, in person, since they were here for my book launch last year. We did do the Skype with them when you and I got together, when you moved here, but you weren't in the house yet. It was like June.
Right.
We were over at an Airbnb. So it was just, and here's what's really funny and interesting to me is that I didn't expect to have any negative or weird feelings, because I find when something is not familiar, there's no attachment to anything. So I've never stayed at this hotel in Baltimore. My parents and I've never been to Baltimore. You and I've never been at this hotel in Baltimore. And all of us, obviously the four of us, have never been together in Baltimore. So I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I didn't know that I would have sort of moments of what I'm calling the Twilight Zone. There were a few moments in which I felt like, how did I get here? And not in a negative way, but it's we talked about it in terms of the train. Remember, in bed we were discussing about the train, and I said I feel like I've been on this train with a partner and my parents for the last 14 years. And I feel like
a long fucking train ride.
Yeah, but the train is life, right? The journey is life. And so, but the train stops, and my partner got off, and you got on, and then we continued. So there's this feeling of, in one way, familiarity for me, but now the people have changed, and the dynamic has changed.
There's only been the person. The only person that changed in that whole train ride was me, and I completely understand that feeling. And while I wouldn't call it a Twilight moment that I had, because I saw it affect you at breakfast on that last day, or maybe it was the second day in, but a number of those places that we went with your parents, I had been to many times with my ex, and I'm like, this is kind of odd. Not that I'm there with you, but it's kind of odd. It's like, I'll never experience this with her again, and I will, and that's fine. But it was odd. I took a picture, you and me and your mom and dad. I can't remember where we were, where I took the picture, but I can recall. Oh, it was right out in front of the restaurant in Hamden, wasn't it? I can recall that same picture, me and my ex and her mom and dad, and I'm like, oh. Okay, well, I guess that's something that I do. I bring them to this restaurant, and I'm sure I took my first wife to that restaurant or down there, and I'm sure I took a picture of her mom and dad and me. I remember walking in, and I'm like, this is like Groundhog Day. It's like this is the third time I've been here with a whole set of different parents, and it's like, okay, but isn't that life? Isn't that life?
Maybe. See, and did you feel weird? I mean, I know you said that you'd had your engagement photos taken there, but what I found interesting and positive was that you forgot. You didn't associate that with it until you stopped long enough to actually focus on it.
Exactly. It wasn't until we were taking that photo, or maybe it was we passed that specific spot. I'm like, oh shit, I took my engagement photos here, and because I had been by that bridge so many times in my life, one of the times was when I did my engagement photos, that whole cascade of feelings for just a moment, just long enough to give me that little twinge of, not I'm sorry to be here now, but it was like, oh, man, yeah, I fucked that up. Right. And it's like, oh my God, I don't want that situation to happen with us.
Well, you didn't fuck it up, and we're going to go into the spiritual side of this at some point, but not today. Today's about the Twilight Zone, because I want people to know that we relate, and I relate, of course, more now than ever. And I'm concerned about a lot of people who actually don't even feel these feelings, because I wonder, again, circumstances are different for everybody in terms of their relationship and how they felt, but I think a lot of people deny themselves the truth of how they really feel because they don't want to feel it.
But my concern was, at that moment when I could tell that you were getting emotional in that Twilight Zone moment, and we talked about it, I think that you had said something about that fear. It wasn't the Twilight Zone moment, it was the fear. And when I hear that word, I'm like, oh my God, this could be, I have to tell you that for a split second, I'm like, oh, she's going to break up with me.
But you're not talking about there are actually two separate issues that you're combining into one.
Okay.
The Twilight Zone was a feeling I was having, and then we had a conversation in the car that triggered me because of a request that you had of me. But that was when, I mean, I got to express some emotions that were obviously coming up for me in the trigger moment. But had you never asked me or requested of me a behavioral change in that moment, we wouldn't have gone there like that, and you wouldn't have had those fears.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
The Twilight Zone was just the idea of, even though my parents are very easy and they're nice people and
they're wonderful people and they're extremely easy.
And they just want me to be happy and everybody to be happy. So I had no fear. I didn't have an ounce of fear or anxiety at all. I never have anxiety. Let me take that back. I have nervous energy sometimes during a major time, like during the book launch, or there were certain times where I remember I didn't sleep very well. But I don't consider that anxiety. I just consider that fear that I'm expressing, and it's keeping me up. But I didn't have any fear of you and them or anything like that. I think I just had this weird feeling of maybe because there was nothing familiar. But yet I felt like it should be. Maybe that was the expectation of, we're all together and there is no relationship yet. You haven't met them yet. We have no history yet. And yet I feel like, again, I've been on this train. So to me, there's this whole, you and I have history, but they haven't been a part of it.
Right. So you feel like every moment that we just created was a brand new moment. Well, it should be something that's comfortable and easy and familiar to you because haven't you been here before for the last 12 years? And yeah, I get that. The beautiful thing about this is that I had a chance to meet your parents and I discovered how easy it is and will be to fall in love with them. And I felt like here is an opportunity to further our relationship through bringing your parents into the formula as well, and not in a manipulative way, but because I realize, in the same realization that hit me when my last marriage failed, it was I would say to her, "Don't you realize this isn't just about you and me? This is about our families. It's why don't we go to therapy?" This is about our families. This is about my mom who likes you. This is about your mom who likes me, the relationship that I have with your brother and your sister-in-law and your nieces. And why can't you see past all of this, what you're seeing, to go and let's get some therapy together? And for me, that was the problematic side of that breakup. It was that she didn't even try. She might have internally thought that she tried, but she didn't fucking try even for a moment. I mean, or at least she didn't share that with me.
Well, I think you and I both have, because we're more similar, and I think our spouses are more similar to each other, where we have a definition of what that looks like, and it's not theirs. So we have a judgment about them not trying, even though they did the best that they could, and even though we see all the ways we think it could have been better, or they could have tried harder or done different things. It's harder to give that credit. And I know for myself, but I think I tried for a really long time in order to make the best of it and to acknowledge sort of all of the inner workings of marriage and how you intertwine your families and all these experiences and friends. And, when we had your party here, your kind of welcome to LA party. And I knew I had one of my friends come, and I knew she had a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a hard time, I know, because my husband wasn't here, and it was no longer his house. And that was what was weird to her. And she had a hard time getting over that. And I could tell that just from the way she was acting. And I get that. And I get how she cried when I told her what had happened. And, lots of people are affected. And so the Twilight Zone is still, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's still from time to time.
I agree. It's different for you, I think, than me because you're in the same environment that you were before. I moved here. I have stepped out of a country away from where I was before. So for me, it's everything is brand new. I have no Twilight Zone moments while I'm here because I have no friends that I had from back east. I had no family from back east. Everything that I knew, even to the extent that the career that I'm building and have been building for the last several years has been changed. You know, every time I step back into that, for those of you that are listening to this, and I don't think I've ever covered my background here. I've been 30 years as a MC, as a DJ for high end social events in the DC marketplace, and for me, when I go back into that environment, that's when I start to feel the Twilight Zone effect. It's like, oh my God, is she going to be at this event? It's like, I don't want to deal with her right now. It's not that I don't want to deal with her right now. I don't want to deal with the people that knew her that run into me at events like it happened last weekend and like, oh my God, I didn't know that happened. I'm like, how the fuck don't you know that happened? It's been 6 months. Have you not? She hasn't, and she still is in that marketplace, in that industry. So it's like, she just doesn't share. She's not. You know, so, or maybe she doesn't care, or maybe it's nobody's business, or no, I don't know. But for me, that's when I step into the Twilight Zone, when I get back into that environment. But here, never. Doesn't happen. I don't have it as much here, and that's, you know, the first couple of months, I really, maybe I had a little bit of guilt about that, or I was checking in. I didn't have guilt. I think I was checking in for guilt. I was checking in for, is there anything I'm going to miss? Is there anything that I'm going to compare? And only probably in the first 2 weeks with some little stupid shit did I think, well, he would have done that differently, or he would have known to do that. Oh, what was one of
those
things?
I don't remember right now. They were really little
I'm
stupid
really curious.
things.
I'm curious because I was thinking, what am I doing differently than he would do? I always think that. Well, I don't think that anymore, but I was thinking that.
Well, they were little things about the house. It was nothing. It was really like about whatever, stuff with the house or stuff with the garage, technical things that you wouldn't know or don't have a relationship with. And I knew that, and I wasn't at all really bothered by it. I just noticed it. But what I kept coming up with, and I don't know if we talked about this, was every time well, I still have a lot of pain about the idea of divorce as being like failure. Okay, so I'm having a trigger moment. So in case you wonder, yes, I'm crying. Everyone who's listening. While I still have the trigger of the failure piece, not failure, I guess personal failure. Why couldn't I figure it out? Don't read this as that I have any, like, I don't want to change anything that's going on.
No, I get it. I get it, and I respect how you're feeling right now.
And if here's the other Twilight piece. What I can't explain to my parents, because they don't get me anyway. I mean, they get me to a certain degree, but the depth is not there, and it never will be, and I have to make peace with that. But what they can't appreciate or understand, like a lot of my friends or people who, like important people in my life, like Jeannie and Lisa, and is how you and I got together was so magical. It was like a gift from God in a way. Like for people who are religious, they would have been like, oh my God, right? That story to me and how this happened was so perfectly placed that it was the next step. And there was no this wasn't a distraction. This was well, we don't know where we're going to be, you know, in a year from now, 10 years from now. But what we do know is that we're supposed to be together right now. And this was positioned in such a way to, whether it be to help support each other and heal each other during this process because of the pain that we could, you know, the pain that we both are going through or have gone through, but more than that, the way that we want to live our lives, right? So like we have the duality of sometimes a rebound, which is what everyone was so nervous about, is just a rebound. Well, yeah, it might be, but it might be a rebound that lasts for the next 40 years because on one end, the rebound is that we can relate to each other's pain, but minus the pain, which sometimes a rebound is just about numbing the pain, we have so much in alignment with how we want to live our lives and what we want to do and who we are and how we communicate and what our true desires are for the kind of relationship we want to have separately from each other, that when you put them together, it fits so perfectly that I was sort of waiting to have guilt or sadness about sticking you in this routine that I have in this house, in this life, and literally just replacing the man. And I didn't have any. if anyone would have said, well, what do you miss? I would have said nothing. And I don't mean that in a, I don't love my husband, soon to be ex-husband. I do. But our relationship wasn't, and he knows, and I don't think he'd say anything different, wasn't what we both wanted. And we didn't know how to get to where we both wanted, and we didn't have the tools to do it. And by the end of the day, we didn't have the right pieces and parts in place to make that happen. And so while I still can have love for him and wish him well and want to be his friend and look forward to him meeting you and us kind of all moving on together in a friendly way, because I don't know how else to be. Every ex-boyfriend I've ever had is in my life. This is not going to be any different. Of course, he wasn't a boyfriend, but it's that I've never had the experience of feeling the two things at one time. Of in an instant, the feelings are so strong on both sides of negative and positive. Not the sadness of negative, but of if I give it 10 seconds worth of attention and the story that I tell myself, I can feel sad. Or you know what? Maybe it's sadness for my parents. Okay, I'm going to cry again. But I can turn around in an instant. And when you were first here, I kept checking in for the first 2 months. And I'm like, do I miss anything about him? And I'm like, no, because you and I have dance parties and we meditate together and we do the appreciation game and we eat together and we spend time together and we podcast together. And I'm like,
we've done all of that today, actually.
Right.
All those things we have done today.
I'm like, this is all the stuff I wanted and craved in my entire relationship and didn't really get. And so is there anything that I can say I'm missing that I'm not getting now? There's not. So I just find it so interesting that even though I can stand in this position and say, you and I are meant to be together right now and everything is great, that there are still times where we're in a new place with my parents and I feel this loss or I feel this confusion or I feel this weird, it's not even loss. It's weird. It's Twilight because it feels like, where am I? What was building up to this? Had we been dating and single, we would have led up to this and eat right, but we have jumped so far so fast that there's been no lead in, no backstory, and I'm asking people who are not deep, who don't necessarily, although they loved you just fine and they're again wonderful, loving people, and there's no problem.
Yeah.
But I'm wanting them to understand how I feel on a positive way, which they're not going to because they're not me.
Well, I think the easiest way for them to realize how you feel is to take the old school way of what they want, what I know your parents want, just like what I would want for my kids, my son and my daughter, who are 22 and 25 years old, is they just want for their daughter to be happy. And if you take this as a non-deep scenario and you say, how am I ever going to share with them and teach them what I feel? How can I teach them what is going on in my head and the story as I'm telling myself and the emotions that I'm feeling? Because we know they're not deep people and not in a negative way. I'm not saying this in a negative way at all. They want what every parent wants, and it's for their daughter to be happy. And they're not feeling the sadness unless you are sad. And they are only feeling the happiness when you are happy. And I can tell you just from my kids alone, that's exactly what I want. I want my daughter to be happy. I want my son to be happy. And other than that, I can't expect. They wouldn't expect anything else. They're expecting you to share your feelings with them. And if you're happy, they're going to be happy.
Yeah, no, I know that. I think I just have such a strong desire for them to share in the feelings that I have and the depth of the feelings, and that's unrealistic because they've never met you before. They're not me, and they don't think like I think. And
but do they have that for themselves?
That's a good question. I don't know.
If they don't, you can't expect somebody to feel something that they don't even feel for themselves. I mean, I'm not saying that they don't. Maybe they do. And maybe they, but the fact that you don't know probably leads you to believe, or leads me to believe for you, that they probably don't. They go through life in a fine way, but they go through life the way that they want to, with their head down. They're hardworking people. They go to their church. They do what they do, and they just your dad is like the greatest example of somebody that's just a chipper, cheery guy. He just wants everything to be good, and his in the morning, good morning, good, how you doing, or whatever he's saying. It's like he feels like by him being positive, he is going to create a world of positive in the wake. And if he believes it, guess what? Law of attraction says it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he and he mentioned that you were a very positive person. He acknowledged that in you very quickly.
I love that.
And I see that's going to work since his love language is words of affirmation. Their love language is definitely not quality time, which is mine. But I've had a new appreciation for divorce, again, from a couple different angles. From the appreciation of how much one's life has changed. Even if you wanted it, even if you were the one who thought you'd feel so free when you were done, there's still other things in the aftermath you do not anticipate until you're in it. And then for those who are in so much pain that you're in denial and you're not even being honest because you thought that by getting divorced, you would feel better about yourself and dating, when the reality is you bring yourself with you. And this is why I fought it for so long, because I didn't want to say, I knew it was fixable. Again, you have to have a partner who wants to do that. That's kind of like, I can't make him do that. So now I have a partner who wants to grow with me. And that's, at the end of the day, the most important part. And so far, while I trust you and I know that we're on the right path, what came up in terms of a trigger was, I don't know, I thought he was too. Do you really want what you say you want? Or are you going to turn around like he did after 3 months, 4 months and say, you're trying to change me, stop. And then run the other way and put your foot down.
I think the difference is, in this particular case, we're able to have a conversation about it, and we're able to come to terms with behavior and activity and action, and see, okay, what did this mean? What did this mean? We came. There was a trigger moment for you where you felt like I thought you were trying to change my behavior, or vice versa. I don't even remember the scenario, but
it was me. Well, it's happened on both of us. Me with the food with you, and you with my hair.
Right. So it's like, okay, all right, well, great. Well, at least we can have a conversation about it. I mean, could you have a conversation about it before without there being? No. Okay, no. So, and in my world, it would have been, I just need to process that. I'm not really sure. Can we? I'm not ready to talk about it right now. Okay, but the conversations never happened. They never came. We just kind of.
She should have said, "I'm really not ready to talk about this ever."
All right, I'm not ready to talk about this ever.
Can I process this? That just means, can we just never talk about this again?
Right, and fine, and that's fine. And so now she'll, whatever,
figure it out, or won't.
Exactly. It's
Right.
Not my problem. It's
Right.
not my problem.
Right. But looking at what we both bring to the table, and how we, when I worked with the medical intuitive a couple months ago, she asked me, what relationship patterns have you not healed yet? And I said, I don't know. I'm in transition. It's too new. I can't tell you. And then she went down a tangent that was super cool, but I'm like, I don't know yet. We haven't been together long enough for me to see the patterns that haven't been healed that you and I can work on together. And we can finally do and understand, the work that I talked about with Harville Hendricks, the Imago work, and the really fucking healing for real. And I'm not saying we both haven't come a long way and things haven't been healed already, but we can even do more. And I'm looking forward to that, because that's super exciting to me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. I think that's going to be great.
Because, I noticed it in other parts of my life, the parts I don't need another person for, parts where I used to be offended when people would say things. I'd have my feelings hurt. I'd feel a punch in my gut. That doesn't happen anymore. And even when I get negative feedback from people at this point, I am so healed in so many ways. Not always. I'm a work in progress like everybody else, but I'm healed in so many ways that I can actually listen to someone yelling at me or offending me or saying something mean and hear where their pain is. And it won't even affect me. And it's not from a denial perspective. It's from a compassionate perspective, full of love. So in terms of Twilight Zone of divorce, I think that's what I'm going to call this episode. If you are thinking about a divorce, I would suggest that you listen to the other shows that we've done and that I've done on all the different therapies, because it really, like surgery, should be the last choice. You chose your partner to heal the wounds of your past. And if you have exhausted every possibility, and a lot of you think you have, but I'll tell you, you probably haven't, because there's no way that you've done every single thing I'm going to tell you that you've done. You haven't looked at your astrology, your love languages, your birth order, your any EMDR for past traumas, your imago therapy, law of attraction. I promise you haven't done all of that. So, if you want to save your marriage, or if you want to get divorced, think about what you bring to the table. And until you heal yourself, divorce is only going to be temporary relief. You will take yourself with you. And the next relationship, even though it may be 6 months to a year or even 2 years in, you will experience the same things because you didn't heal the first time around, the second time around.
So I brought in this episode, so are you ready to take it out?
Well, we don't have a Steve O'Brien, but yes, I will take it out. So we will be back next week with a review of Enlightened Sex with David Data, session number 2. But we'd love to hear back from you if this resonated or if there's some things you want to contribute. And you know what? We have a phone line. It's not really mine. It's Doug's.
Oh, yeah, you're going to leave it? Yeah, that'd be cool. 4242 DJ Doug.
Just got to make sure you're letting us know this is for women, men, and relationships and not the nice guys on business. Otherwise, they're going to play your voicemail on the nice guys on business.
And we'd be happy to, but people would be like, what?
Right. So you need to let him know, hey, Doug.
Hey, JJ.
Hey, Doug and JJ. Or hey, JJ and Doug. And then they'll know, doesn't belong on Nice Guys. And then we can play your voicemail on our show. Or just leave a voicemail that you don't want us to play, and we'll just answer the questions.
Talk about foreshadowing. I've had that number for probably 10 years now. It's a Google number, and it's a Malibu exchange. Woo!
Well, foreshadowing, you have an uncle that's lived in California with 2 houses for most of your life. Like, California was in your future.
I know.
So
I'm feeling it. I'm loving it. Dude.
All right, guys, have a great week.
Bye.